Hi there, Jeffrey Rhoades from Experimental Homesteader, Exotic Gardening, and Sheri and Richerson.com. Please subscribe, hit that join button, join our membership. Well, I did not accomplish any of what I was hoping to do today. That's okay. We spent some time working on canning up some beef stew. I was helping to cut the stew meat that we got into slightly smaller pieces. What we got from the processing place. I mean, it was cut the way that they do canning meat, but for us it seemed like, at least for me, it seemed like awfully large pieces. I like more bite-sized pieces of meat in my stew.
I think they thought I was actually canning it as meat.
Yeah.
And not realizing what I was doing.
Yeah, it was. There was a miscommunication, I think, as to exactly what we were doing with it. That we were actually putting it into a stew to can rather than just canning it straight as big chunks of meat. So that's okay. I cut it down, made some smaller pieces. We cooked it up. We got it going. We spent most of the day working on this. Although we did take a break early on, before we'd gotten too far into it, to go get some gas.
And people are just rude.
Yeah, we went over to Upland, okay, because there were two gas stations over there that had gas for $1.74 a gallon. Yes, I said $1.74 a gallon. That was credit card price. Cash was actually 10 cents cheaper, so $1.64. But there were two gas stations running this particular price, and my understanding, it's been going on for about a week or so that they've been running this price. I don't know how or why, but I appreciated, the fact that, that was the price. We went over there, and we were in line for probably about an hour and a half. And it was a little bit, there wasn't really anybody out directing traffic. So, for the most part, people were being pretty good about it. They were being considerate to each other. But the line of cars stretched down Main Street of Upland for several blocks. Now, everybody tried to get over against the curb as much as possible, so as to leave a lane of traffic available. But evidently the police got frustrated because of the amount of cars that were on Main Street, kind of somewhat blocking traffic, causing a little bit of a traffic issue. And so they were putting pressure on the owner or owners of the gas stations to raise their price, to stop this sale, or they were going to start ticketing people on the street, which I believe technically, I think they could write tickets for the people because, well, most people that were in line would put their vehicles into park because you were sitting there for several minutes at a time before you were able to move forward again. So technically speaking, we were parked on the street, on Main Street, where there was no parking. So technically speaking, I think that they could have gotten by with writing tickets. But it would have been a lot of work. It would have been a lot of work for the police department. So, and, it's questionable, one of those kind of gray, iffy situations. But as we got up close, I got turned into the parking lot, and I noticed a vehicle out on the street. There was a car that pulled up next to one of the vehicles that was in the line, and the people were talking through the windows. And I mean, the one vehicle was blocking traffic. I mean, this was a big thing. They were actually blocking the traffic. Then they pulled away and let traffic flow. And I saw them. They came back around, stopped, and was talking to the people in the vehicle. And they did this about 3 times. And then I noticed, there was a vehicle in front that moved forward. And this particular vehicle that was in line stayed sitting where they were. And I glanced over and realized, here comes that vehicle again that was stopping in the street next to this vehicle. And they pulled in front of. So basically, they were allowed to cut into the line that other people had sat in for over an hour, so as to get gas quicker than everybody else. Not real happy about that one. Well, then I pulled up further and was next in line for a pump, and there was a Corvette out on the street, and the guy, vehicle ahead of him pulled forward. He was sitting there, and he was having problems starting his car, which, okay, well, then he cut in front of me because I hadn't pulled real far, I hadn't blocked the drive exactly, but he zipped in front of me and was next to the pump before I got there. It was very rude of this person to cut in front of, like he did. And
gas prices went
and
up.
I'm getting there. I got to the pump, started the process of paying for the gas, because I went ahead and paid at the pump. And Sheri had gone inside, and when she came out,
I went inside because I saw the price change on the sign.
well, yeah, before I had gotten up there, and I was in the process of running my card, and she noticed that the price on the sign had suddenly changed. Now, because I had already started the process, the price on the pump hadn't changed yet. So I still got my gas for the $1.74 a gallon, but they were in the process of changing the price. So basically, the people that were still in line behind me weren't going to get the lower price. They were back up to a normal gas price. So, I got lucky. I was one of the last to manage to get the good price. I believe the individual who allowed the other car to pull in front of them did not get that price, did not get the lower price. The vehicle that pulled in front of them did, but they didn't. So, but, most people that I saw that were there were being courteous to each other, but there were a few that,
There's always going to
were
be
rude.
some bad apples.
Yeah. But we came back home. We spent most of the afternoon working on canning up the beef stew. This included going down in the basement and sorting through jars, trying to find and clean up some jars to use for canning. Because we were doing beef stew, we were trying to find wide mouth jars. Much easier to get the food out of and to clean up the jars afterwards. So we were specifically looking for quart wide mouth jars. So I started going through a lot of the crates and stuff of jars that were down in the basement. Just looking for wide mouths, not really focused on anything else. Until I got to some bags, some plastic bags full of jars, and I started going through those. Started finding a lot of the blue ball jars, which we've been looking for and we wanting to clean up and get looking nice so that we can use them for storage purposes rather than canning. And there's a few of the jars that we are saving because they're worth a little bit more. And I did find 2 of those particular types of jars. Now, I haven't found anything real early in the ball, but I've done a little bit of research on how to identify the age of ball jars. It's based on the logo that's on the jar. And I haven't found some of the early ones that are block letter, or there's the very first ones have a funky logo on them that I'd love to find one of those. At least I'd like to find them in what we have already, rather than going and looking and trying to buy one. Yeah, I'm not really wanting to collect, but I'd like to find something in what we already have.
I'm collecting.
Which 2 of the jars that I found are from the 1900 to 1910 time frame, because they have the third L as the logo on the it's script lettering of the BALL, and then the underline area it's got a little loop to it that makes it look almost like a third L for the ball, and that identifies it as being in that first decade from 1900 to 1910, the first decade of the 20th century. And so I was actually pretty, and they're a unusual shape of jar as well. The tops of them are a little odd, but it was really kind of cool to find these jars. And these are the oldest ones that we currently have in our collection.
That we know of.
Well, that we currently have, that we've identified. I've found a couple of others that are like 1920s. I think the one I've narrowed it down to like 1913 to 1922. I think was where I ran into. So we've got some interesting jars, some decent time frames. But the blue jars we're wanting to use some of for storage purposes, and so I'm going through a lot of the blue jars, and I found a lot more of them because she knew that she had them. I just hadn't been able to find them. I finally have started finding them, and we're going through them. We're also checking the numbers on the bottom, which don't really make a big difference on them. We're just kind of checking to see, what numbers we have. Maybe be able to sit down and say, okay, we've got one of each number, so we've got, but it's basically just in the casting. The number was where it was in the rack, basically, of the mold. So the numbers don't really matter. but it would be kind of cool to say, oh, we've got, numbers 1 through 16, so we've got one of each position. So far I've found quite a few different numbers. We know of somebody that's looking for a number 13, so I haven't found one of those quite yet, but I was looking. So it was kind of an interesting day today. But
the glass looks different when you look down through them too.
Yeah.
I was just bringing them to you.
Well, okay.
Okay, there's one of them.
Okay, here's one of the ones that I've identified.
Look at the bubble in the glass.
Yeah, there's some bubbles. This one has several bubbles.
Yeah.
But you can see, well, maybe you can see.
Probably not. You might have to put your hand in or a piece of paper. Let me see what happens if we put a piece of paper in.
But you can see how the top of the jar is a little different. It's kind of a rounded top. There are some
that doesn't really help.
But you can see here, that's the extra loop, because there's the 2 L's, and then there's the loop for the underline, and it makes it kind of look like there's a 3rd L. And so these jars,
There's a loop on this one too.
That's what I said. The 2 jars.
Oh, okay. And then
Both jars.
To show both jars.
No, I don't need to show both jars. Just need to show one. But those are from that first decade of the 20th century. From the time frame of 1900 to 1910. Now I don't know how to narrow it down further at this point, but at least that gives us a good idea of these jars are this old. I mean, over 100 years old. So pretty cool. But anyways, I think that's going to do it for tonight. So once again, please subscribe. Give us thumbs up, thumbs down, comments below, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Stay safe out there.